investigates frustration at the border and how that frustration is spreading. But first, a coincidence or something very dirty? It just happened again. A mysterious hard drive crash at a government agency right in the middle of another scandal. First it was Lois Lerner's hard drive at the IRS, and now the computer of Lerner's former co-worker at the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, also now said to have crashed. Republican lawmakers investigating. They're very suspicious. How could this possibly keep happening? And to the people at the center of these scandals. Representative Mark Meadows joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
It's good to be back with you, Greta.
Okay, so whose emails, whose hard drive went down at the FEC?
Well, April Sands, she actually worked with Lois Lerner back in her FEC days. But what's troubling is another day, another hard drive crash. So we've got the IRS, we've got the EPA, and now we've got the FEC, who's really designed to make sure that elections are free, fair, and unbiased, and yet we can tell from her tweets that they were not.
All right, so the reason why April Sands is so significant is, number one, she's a lawyer. Number two, at least she had sometime worked with Lois Lerner at the IRS. We don't know if there's any dirty work there. But April Sands recently had to quit the FEC. Why?
Well, she had to quit and resign because she actually violated the Hatch Act, which says that she was actually using government, benefits in terms of actually addressing their political targeting, and it's troubling.
All right, let me give you a couple of these tweets that she said. Let me give you. I have 6 right here. Let me give you the 4th one, which is Monday, June 4th, 2012. 3:31 p.m., so presumably that's at work on a Monday afternoon. And she says, I just don't understand how anyone but straight white men can vote Republican. What kind of delusional rhetorical does one use? That's one of them. Then let's take a look at the number 2 that I have. August 21st, 2012, 10:23 a.m., I assume at work on a Tuesday morning. And in terms of whether she is doing her work or politicking, she says, donate to Claire McCaskill today. That, of course, is a senator from Missouri, a Democrat. And these go on and on. Let me tell you the 6th one. Here's the 6th one. If you're still calling yourself a Republican after the war on women, their stated RNC platform and birtherism, you are my enemy. Done. And there are more Twitters like this. This woman was on a roll, but she's not being prosecuted for the Hatch Act.
Well, and part of that is because when the Office of Inspector General went to get the hard drive, it was mysteriously missing, and this is
missing
not,
or crashed.
We're trying to figure out. It supposedly has been refurbished. We've asked for that hard drive to come back, and so we're waiting to see. But again, they knew that an investigation was going on, and yet the evidence mysteriously disappears.
Well, I don't know why. I mean, look, first of all, she had the hard drive. That would probably make the prosecution a lot easier. But if the question of whether she should be prosecuted for the Hatch Act, not just allowed to resign from the FEC, the mere evidence that at 10:23 a.m. on a Tuesday, she's telling people to donate to Claire McCaskill today. That's called politicking. That one, I mean, the other's just insulting to Republicans, but that one is clear politicking. You don't need a hard drive for that one.
Well, you don't, and so we're not going to drop this. We're going to go after it. You can say one event is maybe coincidental, 2 may be coincidental, but now we're starting to see a pattern, and the pattern is concerning many of us on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee.
Here's the first one. Our POTUS's birthday is August 4th. He'll be 51. I'm donating at least $51 to give him the best birthday present ever, a 2nd term. And what's interesting on this tweet and the other ones, if you look at the bottom, it says there's been 10 retweets. So she sends this out July 18, 12:14 p.m., a Wednesday, and all these are getting retweeted.
Well, they're getting retweeted, and the possibility of people next to her in the next cubicle and so forth of not knowing how she feels personally would be very remote. And this is not a low level. This is an attorney.
That's what's so troubling, is that these government workers who work with people like April Sands, they've got to know something is wrong. I mean, this is the FEC. They can't, she can't be operating in a vacuum. Yet no one speaks up.
Well, she's an attorney who's set out to enforce the law. She knows the law better than anyone else, and yet violates it.
All right. Well, I don't know if you need a hard drive to investigate this one any further, at least the prosecutor. But anyway, nice to see you, sir.
It's good to see you.
And joining us, our political panel, the National Review's Jim Garrity, the Hill's A.B. Stoddard, and the National Journal's Ron Fournier. Ron, your thoughts on April Sands and this whole thing is like just a random, accidental hard drive crash, or are you suspicious?
Well, of course I'm suspicious. Now, we don't know. It's possible that everything's innocent here, but we do know that, as the congressman said, we have a pattern here. We do know that the administration has not been transparent about the IRS investigation. It hasn't been transparent as an administration, period. And we do know that this administration, and this is just a fact, not a partisan statement, that the administration has been hyper-political when it comes to policy, both domestic policy and foreign policy. So there's very good reason to be suspicious about this.
AB, let me read you tweet number 5. And whether, this is like a lawyer at the FEC who's supposed to be enforcing fairness in elections. Dear every single Republican ever, when will you learn that Barack Hussein Obama is simply smarter than you? Stand down. Signed, Obama 2012. And this is, of course, retweeted by other people. That's done at 12/20, May 1st. I suppose she could have walked outside at lunch and done it on her cell phone and not be violating the Hatch Act.
It's possible, but the thing is that usually lawyers who work at the Federal Election Commission are aware of Hatch Act violations. They're pretty good at figuring out which hard drive should be recycled and that kind of thing. This is obviously, it is a suspicious pattern. It doesn't look good because she's just not sort of an innocent young employee with no legal background who might not know about the laws that she's required to follow in her workplace. But what's interesting too is that it's partisan and it's sort of really juvenile at the same time. I mean, the tone of the tweet. So, but as for whether or not this looks terrible, it looks awful. She knew the rules better than most people who get hired to the federal government.
And let me read you number 3 before I go to you, Jim. Romney is toast. This is done on Tuesday, September 18th, right before the 2012 election, 9:53 a.m. Either she's at work or we're paying her not to be at work. But if she's at work, it's a Hatch Act probably. But it says Romney is toast, but POTUS can't do it all on his own. Don't forget congressional races. We need a Democratic sweep. Stay focused.
This is like the ref coming out in the face paint of one of the teams and saying, no, trust me, I'm going to call the game fairly and effectively. Once a BS excuse works, this administration is going to go back to it time and time again. Oh, the computers were lost. Oh, the hard drives are crashed. Apparently, Lois Lerner is like this one woman walking electromagnetic pulse that just erases computers everywhere she goes. Yeah. And so, look, these are documents that they're legally required to keep. And yet, so far, nobody's gone to jail. No one's been fined. We've barely seen anybody hauled before Congress and given 50 lashes with a wet noodle. I mean, until there's a consequence, why should they stop giving this excuse?
Okay, I thought that it was just a coincidence the first time I learned. I'm way off that now. I'm so enormously suspicious now when you have this one. But what I don't get is that the prosecutor needs to have the hard drive to prosecute her. I would do an investigation on this with just the tweets to see whether she violated the Hatch Act. Where's the prosecutor? Why isn't nobody's outraged?
I think any American, whether you're Republican or Democrat, looking at this, it just doesn't look right. And I go back to the IRS thing. I've been saying for a year now we need to have a special prosecutor because we can't trust the Republicans to do this without overreaching, and we sure can't trust the White House to investigate itself.
Well, the president thinks there's not a smidgen of corruption.
He doesn't know. He has no idea.
He's not accountable over this situation. He never has been.
He's going to take care of this as soon as he gets elected.
This investigation is not going away. Everyone on that committee and both chambers is going to pursue this, but on the Republican side. But there's a lot of other noise.
Do you think the Democrats should be doing this? I mean, you don't think Democrats should be outraged at this?
I really think there's a point at which where Democrats cannot defend this anymore, and they can't, especially if you're going home on a tough campaign and you're going to have to answer questions about this. This is just they can't stand by the administration's line, which is that apparently if you work for the federal government, especially at the IRS, you're allowed to have computer crashes.
You can't be the party of government when government keeps doing stuff like this.
Panel, thank you.